Today we are going to be talking about what is consensual sex. This is just a quick trigger warning. This video will include mentions of sexual violence. Just in case that makes you uncomfortable, that's fine. Just a quick trigger warning. So first thing we want to do is maybe just pause the video and think about when you want to date somebody, what are some attributes that you want to see in their personality that will make that relationship healthy. So just pause and think about that. So hopefully when you're talking, you thought of things like trust and love and respect, and we could go on and on and on about the things that would make a healthy relationship. But what's really important to remember is that all of these things are needed to give consent. So let's now talk about what is consensual sex, why is it important in a relationship or in any sexual encounter. Sex is not only a physically demanding act, but it also requires a lot of mental preparation as well, as in it requires a lot of trust between two people. So there needs to be an understanding of what you and your partner are consenting to. So sexual consent is an agreement that one has to make with a partner before performing any sexual act. And notice that it says any sexual act, so you have to give consent for everything, even if it's not just sex, even if it's oral sex or anal sex, you have to give consent and you have to make sure that both parties are comfortable. This is also really important. Just because you're dating someone does not mean that they have your consent. Anytime you perform a sexual act, there needs to be consent clearly given. So now let's talk about how to give consent. Consent has to be freely given. There has to be no manipulation from your partner. You can't be under the influence. You have to have sex because you want to have sex. Consent is reversible. You can always retract consent and change your mind while having sex. That's okay. If you're doing something and you suddenly say, hey, I'm uncomfortable, that is completely fine. Consent has to be informed. You have to be honest about your sexual history and use protection while having sex. You have to talk about these things. If you're using protection while you're having sex and your partner takes it off, say a condom for instance, that is not informed consent. You are not consenting to him not using a condom. You have to make sure that everything about the experience is completely laid out and you are consenting to everything. Consent has to be specific. Just because you say yes to a kiss doesn't mean that you say yes to having sex with someone. Just because you say yes to oral sex does not mean you're saying yes to having full-on sex with somebody. This is the most important aspect of consent, is enthusiasm. Sex should not be should not be viewed as something that is done to you, but something that two people do together. You should have sex because you want to have sex, not because someone expects you to. When you give consent, you should be enthusiastic and ready to have sex. It is a personal and important choice that you make. No one else gets to dictate when you don't give consent. So now let's look at some case studies. Knowing what we know, let's read these and maybe pause the video and then we'll go over the answer. So I'll just read it quickly. Jane and Graham are at a house party. They start to kiss and Graham suggests they should go upstairs. They lie on a bed and kiss some more. Graham tries to take Jane's underwear off, but she pushes his hand away several times. They continue kissing and he tries again. She doesn't move his hand this time. Graham starts to have sex with her. Okay, so hopefully we talked about whether the Jane consented or not in that situation. The answer would be no. Your partner needs to be able to pick up on nonverbal cues. If someone keeps moving your hand away from you, they clearly do not want to have sex. Just because Jane consented to kissing does not mean she consents to sex. So that's really important. If you get nonverbal cues that your partner does not want to have sex, pull away and say, hey, are you okay? Or at least that's what you should expect from your partner. Or clearly state, hey, I don't want to have sex with you right now. Okay, let's look at the next case study. James and Amy have been dating for 2 years. One night, James starts kissing Amy and touching her inner thigh on their bed. Amy is tired and wants to sleep, but James continues and has sex with her. So let's just pause, talk about was consent given in this situation. No, it was not. Jane did not consent to any of that. Even if they are dating, it does not mean that James can force himself onto her. Okay, one very important thing to remember through all of this is that you control your sex life. You control whether or not you want to do something. Nobody else does. And if somebody else is trying to, they obviously do not care for you and your parameters when you're having sex. Always remember that. You are in control. Nobody else. If you don't want to have sex, that's fine. If you do, that's fine. There should be no excess shame. So maybe